What was the first instrument you played?
Well, we all messed around with drums.
Uh-huh.
But I'm so glad I didn't do drums because
Yeah.
of having two great brothers who were drummers, I never would have had a gig. And then I saw the bass. Actually, I saw the upright bass in high school orchestra, and I really, really dug it.
Right.
And it spoke to me.
Well, how so? Why?
Well, you know how you walk into a class and you just see it, and then all of a sudden you love it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got a bass guitar, a red bass guitar, which was a pretty cheap thing, you know. But then I really got into it because I studied with the late great Louis Satterfield, who actually is the co-author of our bass book.
Sure.
And then on Thursdays I would do the classical lessons,
Right.
you know, Bartok, Beethoven, Stravinsky, all of those guys. You know.
Well, that's fascinating to me. That here you had Louis Satterfield, you know, teaching you, you know, if you will, kind of the R&B oriented or even the jazz oriented
Right.
bass, and then you had this classical training,
Right.
Ultimately going on to work in R&B and jazz. Talk a little bit about what that classical training and how that helped you.
Well, it was actually our father. He stressed if you're going to play the instrument, play it right. So I would take lessons on Thursday from a great teacher named Roddy Villar from Chicago Symphony Orchestra, and he really. I studied out of the ballet book. For those who don't, that's a classical book, and the Samandal book, which is another classical book, and other great bass players who studied out of Samandal was Stanley Clarke, Christian McBride, all of those. Richard Davis out of Chicago, who was a great player. He played with another great upright player named Gary Carr.
Yeah.
These are names you don't know, but these were like, you know, names back in the day for, you know,
But
classical
these,
players. Yeah.
I mean, these were guys that you looked up to.
Yeah, I did, because I wanted to really make sure I had the classical thing down.
Sure.
And then on weekends I'd play, you know, club gigs, you know. You know.
Now, when as you were working on the classical stuff and doing that, if you will, lesson work,
Yeah.
were you like any kid? Were you resistant to that? Would you have rather been out playing with your brothers or playing in a
Not
band
at all.
or whatever?
It was all music.
Uh-huh.
I dug
Yeah.
it was great. All of it was great because it gave me a chance to like hear all kind of music. And then I was in the All-American High School Orchestra with Carmen Dragon, and Leonard Bernstein came and conducted, but we were like 15, 16 years old,
Yeah.
you know. So, you know.
What was that? Do you remember that? What was that like with Leonard Bernstein?
He was screaming and hollering all the time, you know. Do this, do that, do this, you know, and the one and two and one and the one, you know. And he had all these big gestures, and he was doing all that stuff. You know? So he, you know, that's what I remember. Then I got older. I said, oh, now I know why he does all that stuff, you know. And so that was a great experience, you know. It was a nerve-wracking experience. But Louis Satterfield was always great because he always kept me in reality, you know. And Sat was like hip, you know. Ralph knows, you know. Sat was like, you know, hip, street, you know. Because, you know, classical, you know, it can be a little snooty, you know. And I was a young African-American 16-year-old with an afro and pimples, and I had an upright bass, which was expensive.
Right.
You know, a lot of African-Americans couldn't afford upright basses. Maurice got me one from his buddy Bill Terry, and that's what I used. And so I had the first chair. First chair means you're the first bassist, which is, you know, ego, right?
Yeah. Status,
yeah, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, you're telling everybody else what to play. They're following you. So on my lessons with Sat, which I would take on Sundays, I said, Sat, I got the first chair. He said, well, y'all playing the same stuff, ain't you? So what? So that was over.
Right.
Yeah.